Hey everybody, I'm Ashleigh Banfield and this is Drop Dead Serious. Big news coming out of South Carolina. Have you been following that story of a young woman named Elena Moore? Seriously, it's on my feed all the time and I keep looking over. I'm like, what is going on with that girl? Like, hey, what, these photos, something isn't right. She disappeared a week ago and there are these pictures of her, at a Planet Fitness and then at someone's doorstep and then walking along the street. And she's wearing this like workout outfit the whole time. But the details as they keep coming in just got weirder and weirder. And so today there's a big development. It's not an entire development whereby we can say we know exactly what's happened, but it's a development nonetheless. A body has been found. Is it hers? Don't know yet. But let me walk you from the beginning because I think this story sort of needs to be told because, there are those cases where details are strange and you keep thinking there's got to be a missing piece that explains everything. Elena Moore's is this story. She's 39 years old. She's from Lexington, South Carolina. She went to Planet Fitness Thursday night, June 11th, last week. And she signed in as well. And she did so at exactly 6:41 p.m. Full name, Elena Katherine Moore. She's married, personal trainer. And I talk about her in first person right now because right now the police are saying they have found a body, but they are not saying for sure it is hers. They are saying there are indications. I'll get to that in a second. But she was reported missing on Friday, June 12th, and it was her husband that put that report in. Family members apparently had a tough time reaching her. And so the husband calls it in. That's important, that detail. And you'll find out why in a moment. So police originally said that the last known sighting of Elena was at a CVS. And then that turned out not to be true. And then they had to walk that back, which is troublesome because when you're dealing with a missing woman and police reports and a husband who calls it in and family members who are concerned, you should know the last spot where she's seen. So how it got out into the ether that she was last seen at a CVS, I'm sure at some point we'll get that detail, but for now, the police had to put out a correction. And then there was another correction that had to be put out. And this one bothers me even more. It was that she was found. Everything was fine. And that was not true either. So two issues early on in a missing persons case that should not have happened, did happen. And even more troubling, Elena Moore may have been a vulnerable person. And I'll tell you why in just a second, because that's an important detail in this case also. So then police correct the CVS thing and say, oh, no, sorry. The last known sighting of Elena was actually near a Planet Fitness where she signed in. And it was in the nighttime, like the evening, late evening. She's walking towards a wooded area behind a Lowe's home improvement store. That's not good. You don't really find yourself, as a single woman out walking behind a big box store around 9-ish at night. That's weird. So then police get new surveillance video, and it apparently shows Elena Moore later that same night on June 11th. And this time she is seen in the Publix parking lot. That's at 100 Old Cherokee Road. And the video captures her about 9:17 p.m. and she's walking in the direction of Old Cherokee Road. And she's wearing the same thing. She's still wearing that workout clothing, right? The olive green zip-up hoodie, the black athletic pants, the same thing that she had on earlier that evening when she's seen at the front desk of the Planet Fitness. And I'm still curious about what that front desk communication is because she appears to be having a conversation with those women at the front desk. So I'm assuming they've got lots to say to the police. I sure hope that the police have talked at length with those women at the front desk, right? Because I would want to know what were the circumstances? What was her mental state like when she's talking to you at the front desk because you're the last people who saw her, technically, until she showed up on video elsewhere. But police believe that Elena had a cell phone with her at the time that she disappeared. But they said that the phone wasn't pinging as of Monday this week. They also say that Elena's husband later found her vehicle in the Lowe's parking lot. And that's a bit weird as well, because the most recent detail on Elena and whoever that body is, could be hers, likely is hers, the police said that the husband has been in possession of that vehicle all along. So that needs some clarity because I'm hoping what they mean is that the husband has been in possession of that vehicle since it was found at the Lowe's. But if they don't mean that, what do they mean? What is the story about Elena's vehicle and the husband's possession of that vehicle? Still a mystery. And then came something even more bizarre, perplexing, honestly troubling. It's video. About a week before Elena Moore was reported missing, a Ring doorbell cam at a Lexington apartment captured something that now just throws a big old wrench into the whole story and really makes this more mysterious than we assumed at first.
Hey. You mind if I take a picture of it? Oh, yeah. You can take that one. I just want to take a picture of the door. Thank you. Oh, shit. I just realized you had. John Moore?
Yep.
This is for you.
There it is. Thank
Or just deliver it out?
you. Yep.
So Mills Hayes is the national correspondent for NewsNation, and she is a very, very good reporter, like really good. I love her. And she, wouldn't you know it, digs into this story, and she finds the couple that lives at that apartment. And they talked to Mills, and they said that Elena showed up at their door, and this is weird, an entire week before she vanishes. So they capture her on their doorbell cam on June 4th. Remember, June 11th is when she disappears. And on the doorbell cam, Elena is very confused and disoriented. At least that's how she appears. And this is what happens. A DoorDash driver comes to drop off food for this couple. And that's all normal. And there it goes, right there at the front door. But then Elena comes in behind her and picks it up like the food belongs to her. And the DoorDash driver thinks, well, okay, probably the resident who lives here. So DoorDash driver doesn't think much of it. But then the homeowner kind of opens the door and sees this woman there holding his food and assumes that must be the DoorDash driver. It's not. DoorDash driver's already left. And so homeowner takes the food, turns to go back into his apartment, and Elena starts to follow the homeowner into the apartment, which is strange. Here's how it's described.
When the doorbell got rang twice, usually whenever we do DoorDash, we just do the leave on the doormat, no contact delivery. But somebody rang the doorbell twice. So we got up and went to the door, and there sat Miss Moore, how you say her name?
Elena.
Elena. There sat Elena with our DoorDash order reading the receipt. She seemed kind of out of breath.
Whenever the DoorDash went off, or the Ring camera went off twice, he went to answer it, and I pulled up our Ring camera on my phone, so I was watching it while he was answering. And at first, all we saw was Miss Moore at the door as our DoorDash lady.
And we thought it was our DoorDash lady, Jessica.
Yes.
Which is the black lady who actually did set the food down in the very beginning of the video.
And then
So once I got the food from her, I turned around to walk back in the house, and she took one step forward like she was going to walk in the house with me. And I turned around and looked at her, and she was like, "Oh, Just a delivery? I said, yeah. And she she turned to go to walk down the stairs. We shut the door, and then my wife was still looking on the ring camera footage, and we watched her walk back across the hallway and sit down on the steps of my neighbor's porch.
Okay, so the plot thickens and gets a bit more bizarre, if that's possible. About an hour later, the homeowner says that she saw Elena again. After they closed their door and got their food, and the odd lady was on her way. An hour later, apparently the odd lady is back, and Elena is apparently this very strange person. They didn't know at the time that this is Elena. It's just a strange lady. Now the strange lady is at their neighbor's house and rifling through packages, which is strange. So the homeowner makes an inquiry like, what's up, right? And here's how she put it.
Well, when my lady come outside, she saw the lady still standing on the porch.
She was sitting in front of our neighbor's door, crisscross, and she had the neighbor's package, but she's on the phone, and I can't tell if she's looking up something or if somebody's on speakerphone, because I kind of hear something on the phone, but I don't hear any voices. And I'm like, I'm staring at her, and I'm like, that's our DoorDash lady. So I go take my dog potty. I come upstairs, and it's really, I'm like, do you know my neighbor? And she's like, no. And I was like, well, what are you doing? Sitting there. And she was like, she was kind of like, she's like, honestly, I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm like, okay, well, can you please, leave his stuff alone? And she says, okay. And she gets up and walks down the hallway, or walks down the stairs.
Okay, here's something else that's very, very strange in this entire story. The location of the apartment complex where this video was recorded and the weird package thing happened at the neighbors. This is the Overlook Golden Hills Apartments, and it's only about 0.6 of a mile from the Planet Fitness. That's where Elena was last seen on June 11th, right? Elena's home is not so close. It's like 6 miles away from the gym. So that's about a 12-minute drive. So odd things are happening around the Planet Fitness. And remember, Elena is actually a personal trainer. Not necessarily at that Planet Fitness, but it's all kind of a puzzle with pieces that are scattered all over the place, trying to figure out where they all fit. But so she disappears. She's last seen at this Planet Fitness. The apartments where she shows up on camera a week before, taking a DoorDash off, order, that's only a little over a half mile away. She lives a 12-minute drive away, 6 miles away. So trying to figure out why Elena is spending odd time in the week that she's going to vanish, right? So Mills Hayes, this amazing reporter, also spoke with a few other people who know Elena, though they didn't want to be named. They want to remain anonymous in all of this. And they said that she was known around Lexington because she worked at the CVS, and she was also a bartender at a couple of different bars. And they also said that she moved to Lexington from Russia and that she was adopted by a family there. Strange description. Not sure of the ages involved here, but I'm going to talk to Mills in just a second. So there was one source that told Mills that Elena had just gotten out of a place called Three Rivers. And if you know Three Rivers, or if you're from South Carolina or the Lexington area, you will know that Three Rivers is a mental health facility. And so pieces are coming together a little more. Elena is apparently at this mental health facility before she went missing. She checked out. She was out for a while. Suddenly she's missing, and all these strange things are happening. So then Mills also finds out from sources that Elena and her husband, Brannon Slice, had been together for more than 13 years, but just got married 2 years ago in 2024. And police say that it was Brannon who reported her missing the day after she was last seen on June 11th. And they say that he is not a person of interest. Interesting. I have questions about that. It's awfully early to be ruling people out, right? Especially with all this weird stuff happening. So Mills is also told that Brannon, the husband, and Elena had apparently been having some trouble, some difficulties, relationship issues. So again, how is a husband ruled out so quickly? As we all know in true crime, it doesn't even matter. You just automatically have to look at the beginning, at the middle of the concentric circle, those who are closest to a missing or vulnerable person, and then you move out from there. So a husband, you would think, would not be ruled out so quickly, but I'll be interested to hear what the police have to say. And they held a press conference just a couple hours ago. I was watching it live. Very disappointed. Didn't have a lot of information, but I am recording this at 6:50 on June 17th. So the Lexington PD gets behind the mic, the police chief, and they say that because of a tip, very important, because of a tip from the public, they were able to search an area near Old Cherokee Road. They started that search around 1:30 this afternoon, and it was at about an hour and 15 minutes later, 2:48 p.m., that they found a body. Here's what's interesting about the tip. The tipster called the police and said, I think I recognize that lady, and she was seen in our area on June 11th. So now the searching begins, and here we are, June 17th, 6 days later. But, the media got the word out, and people started realizing, wait a minute, that's not normal. And then they searched that area. Is it the same tipster as the neighbors who had her on the Ring doorbell cam? I do not know that. Possibly. We just know that the police chief said a tip was called in. Elena was seen on a doorbell camera on June 11th in their area, and they began searching. So the body they came across, apparently, they say fits Elena's description in the fact that this person was wearing the same clothing that Elena was described to have been wearing. But they, at this point, have to wait for the coroner to make an official identification. But they did say this: we have asked South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, which we often refer to as SLED, to investigate this death investigation, and that this is an active investigation. So then a reporter asks, well, is there foul play, right, in this investigation? And the frustrating answer was, it's an active investigation. So the police wouldn't even say whether it appears that Elena had met with some kind of, criminal activity. They wouldn't say if this looked like a suicide. They wouldn't say anything. They wouldn't even say where this body was found. And again, I can't say that it's Elena. It just appears they've held the news conference. They said the body is wearing the same clothing. But still, it just seems to be a bit of a weird mystery. You have all these weird coincidences of strange behavior, and then a disappearance, and then a body found, and it's not necessarily suicide right away, but a death investigation, and in comes, the SLED investigators to look into this. That only meant that I needed to call Mills Hayes, because as a great reporter, she's been digging in and she's been talking to sources and friends of this missing woman. And so I had an opportunity to speak with Mills. Here's our conversation. Mills, it's great to have you. Thank you for joining the podcast. This is a very distressing story and a very distressing development. Walk me through where we are and the unusual nature of this missing person's case.
Right. Well, we just heard less than 30 minutes ago that Lexington police confirmed that they did find a body that matches the clothing that Elena Moore was last wearing when she was last seen at that Planet Fitness last Thursday on Friday, so June 12th. And so we know that they found a body there, and they had closed off that road for a couple of hours, and we don't yet know if it is her for sure. They're waiting on the coroner's report to come in, but they've handed this over to the South Carolina Law Enforcement Enforcement Division for a death investigation. And we were talking earlier, but the police chief, Terrence Green, didn't really answer a whole lot of questions, just saying that this was an active investigation at this point. But this has been something that has really consumed the people in Lexington over the last week, because this kind of stuff just doesn't happen in Lexington. And from everyone that I've talked to, they said that, she was well known around Lexington. She was a bartender. She worked at multiple different bars. She worked at CVS pharmacy nearby, and she was also a personal trainer. And so she was really active in the community there. And so this has really been a shock. So I think people are really hungry for answers right now.
I'm not going to lie, I was like going out of my skin with that press conference, because there was just so much that was left unsaid, and things that, the police could have said, meaning we found this body in the woods, or did we find this body in a yard, or did we find this body in a dumpster? Or, I mean, we literally have no idea. But one thing they did say was that a tip led them to this location based on something someone said on June 11th, last week. I mean, it's June 17th. That's 6 days ago. So apparently this tipster said she was seen in my area a week ago, and what do you know? Now that they found her body, it just seemed odd.
Well, they did get the surveillance video today. And so I think maybe that was kind of the push for them to get out there. So they had surveillance video that showed her on June 12th. So she was last seen, or she signed in to the Planet Fitness at 6:41 on June 12th. And then this new surveillance video has her leaving the Publix, which is just, it's not far from the Planet Fitness. You could walk there with less than 10 minutes. And they show her leaving there a little around like 9:17 at night and walking towards Old Cherokee Road. And so it's a hill. So you got to walk down, and then you go through North Lake Drive, and then you cross onto Old Cherokee Road again. And that's where police had a section of Old Cherokee Road closed off since around 1:30. And they say that they found a body that matches her, the clothing, at around 2:48, and that they were searching in a wooded area. And so we assume that she was found in that wooded area because that's where they had been searching. They had the Lexington police out there, the Lexington Fire Department out there. And so it was that new video that really allowed them to go in that area. They did another search on Monday too, in a different part of town after getting surveillance footage. But obviously that didn't lead them anywhere. So now we do have this new information.
Okay, the weirder part of all of this was the folks that you came across who said that she showed up on their doorbell cam and, was trying to take their DoorDash order and rifle through past packages, at the neighbor's house. It all just seemed very. Walk me through your conversations with those neighbors and what you were left with their bizarre story.
Well, I mean, they were telling me that they, for so long, thought that this was just a crazy DoorDash experience, and that they thought that she was their DoorDash driver when all of this had happened. And then a couple of days later, they see her photo that had been posted by police and the missing person flyers that were everywhere. And they were like, wait, that girl looks an awful lot like that girl that was at our door. And they went back and they went through their ring camera footage and realized, yes, oh my goodness, this was her. They handed that over to police. But in the video, and they described this to me too, there's two women that walk up to the second floor of an apartment complex. And there's one woman who drops off the bag of food. She backs up to go and try to take a picture, as a DoorDash driver does. And then Elena is like right behind her, leans down to pick the food up. That DoorDash driver thinks that Elena, it lives there. Sure. And so she's like, thanks. And the DoorDash driver's like, let me just take a picture really quick. Elena's like, okay, yeah. And then the DoorDash driver leaves. Elena's there in front of the apartment door, and she has the bag of food, and she's also looking at the receipt and reading it. And then all of a sudden, the husband, John Moore, not related, but he opens the door and she's like, oh, here you go. And then when she hands it over, she kind of takes a step forward as if she's about to try to walk into the apartment building. And he's like, what's going on? And she's like, just a delivery. And he's like, yeah. And so then she kind of looks up at the number of the apartment building, and then he closes the door. She walks away. But then about an hour later, his wife, her name is Sarah Burleson, she went outside and she realized that that girl was still there at her neighbor's door going through the packages. And Sarah says that she walked up to Elena and was like, hey, what are you doing? And she's like, do you know my neighbor? And Elena's like, no. And she was like, well, what are you doing? And she's like, honestly, I don't know. And then she tells the girl hey, well, okay, maybe don't, mess with my neighbor's packages. You can move on. I mean, it was a really friendly interaction, but it was very strange. And someone asked me, I was telling this earlier, but someone asked me, why didn't they call the police? And that's just not something that people in Lexington really do unless someone's causing trouble. She wasn't really causing trouble. She was just kind of walking around in a confusing way. The couple said that she seemed kind of disoriented, like something was wrong, and that she didn't really know what was going on, and that she just seemed kind of out of it, really. And so just a really strange situation. But now, I mean, that they realize that they're in some ways a part of this missing persons case, now death investigation. I mean, it was something that was really surprising to them. And they were telling me they have 4 daughters, and where they live, that apartment complex is so close to that shopping center that Elena was walking around. There's a bunch of other shops. There's a TJ Maxx. And she was saying how her daughters always want to walk from their apartment complex up there to the shopping center. And she was like, now I'm not gonna, she's like, I wouldn't have let them do it before, but they ask me all the time and I tell them no. And she's like, now I'm definitely not going to let them walk alone, because we don't know what happened to Elena. And so it was very unsettling for them.
Let's talk about what's really in your makeup. Most of us spend a lot of time worrying about what we eat and what we drink and how we take care of our families, but then we cake our faces with makeup full of chemicals that we cannot even pronounce. Your skin is your body's largest organ, so whatever you put on it is absorbed. And that's why I use Toups & Co. Here's what I love. Their liquid foundation and face primer, they don't just cover your skin, they actually nourish it. Most makeup requires constant touch-ups, or it leaves your skin feeling heavy and clogged, but this stuff feels incredibly light. It doesn't cake, and it actually lasts throughout the day. So if you're tired of using makeup with mystery chemicals, you don't have to anymore. Simplify your routine and actually feel good about what you're putting on your skin. Head to toupsandco.com/Banfield. They're offering my listeners 25% off your first order with the code Banfield. That's toupsandco.com/Banfield. And use my code Banfield for 25% off your first order. You could just click the link in the description. Well, until we know what the circumstances were with the body, I mean, it's frustrating that the police didn't indicate that this might just be, I don't know, perhaps a suicide or exposure. But if this is a murder, I think these neighbors deserve to know that, because these people obviously have this additional fear now. Did they mention anything about Elena's demeanor other than she seemed disoriented? Did she look as though she'd been abused in any way? Was she crying? Was she distressed, or just kind of out of it?
They didn't say if anything like that, but they did say that she kind of seemed winded in a way. But the dad that I talked to said that he thought maybe it was just because she was walked up the steps, but that she seemed just kind of like, oh my gosh, kind of situation. So they didn't necessarily say that, but they did express to me concern about the police search and everything, especially because there are so many surveillance videos in that area. And so they were confused as to why a search hadn't been happening already, and that they didn't realize why one was just now happening today. Because when I talked to them, it was about an hour before the search began. But I mean, yeah, they were just saying how it was just a really just strange interaction.
So the other thing I noticed in in the surveillance, the doorbell camera, was that Elena looked very flushed. Like she looked as though she had been on a long run in the heat. And she's wearing her workout clothes. So does anybody even know, like, did she work out at the Planet Fitness? Did she spend an hour on the treadmill or doing something with a lot of exertion? I'm almost wondering if she, was dehydrated and delusional in some way.
Well, and we don't know that. All we know is that she checked in at 6:41, so we don't know exactly, what she was doing at the gym. But I mean, from walking from Planet Fitness to that apartment complex, I mean, that's like half a mile. I will say, in Lexington, it's hot, it's humid out there. So I mean, just standing outside, you'll get overheated a little bit. But I mean, she was a personal trainer, so you assume that she's used to being pretty active. But she said that, I was just going back through my notes with the couple that I spoke with, and she said that they said that she didn't look scared to them, and that she didn't ask for help in any way. She just kind of looked confused.
Well, and everybody has a different viewpoint, especially when you're not thinking the very worst might be, happening. Most people are ready to just sort of brush off strange encounters as, innocuous. But now in retrospect, obviously, it's quite distressing. What about the fact that she's a personal trainer? I've seen some people commenting online about potential clients. Does anyone know if she had any clients? And is the gym talking about that?
We haven't heard anything from the gym, but of course, Planet Fitness, it is corporate. So, I mean, it is franchised, but we haven't heard anything from the people that work there or really any clients. But I did speak with some people who knew her, and they did tell me that a couple of weeks before she went missing, she had checked out of Three Rivers Behavioral Health, which is a mental health treatment facility not too far from that area, and that she had been struggling. To what extent, we don't know. But that person that I spoke with also told me that she had been having some relationship issues. She's not sure if they were separated or not, but that they had been having issues. So, combine that with just leaving a mental health treatment center, definitely a lot going on.
Well, there's some conversation that's going on with the front desk at the Planet Fitness. You can see just in the still camera shot that she's engaging with the people at the front desk. So maybe they'll have some kind of a story to tell about what that last encounter was like. But I am a little more interested now that you say that her friends say that she'd been having some relationship issues. The police were very, very quick to say that the husband is not a person of interest. And I'm always fascinated by that because typically you can't rule anybody out at all, especially in the early offings of a mysterious disappearance. Why do you suppose he was cleared so quickly and that police officers were so quick to suggest, nothing to see here?
I mean, it's hard to say for sure, but I am told that he is former law enforcement and he's currently a private investigator. We're still working to figure out where. But, he has law enforcement background. There may be people that he's friends with in the department that we don't know about. But it is interesting to hear them come out and say that no foul play is suspected at this time. I was actually reading another article it was a video from the Law and Crime Network that one of their reporters said that they had talked to him and that he said that he didn't want to say much right now because he's been advised by police not to talk to media, but once everything is over, he would talk. So something for us to, keep an eye on. I have reached out to him as well, but I haven't heard back. So we'll have to see. But it is interesting to see police say that he is not a person of interest at this time, but it also seems like they don't have a lot of information or at least that they're not sharing right now. And now that it's being turned over to SLED, hopefully we'll see some of that investigation pick up a little bit.
Well, I'll tell you what, that bothers me, especially if he's getting advice from the police not to speak publicly. That's the thing you get from a lawyer, not from the police when your wife is missing. And at this point, when that was a reality, they didn't know if she was dead or, going to be found in a wooded area. So there's some questions that need to be answered there, I think, on the part of law enforcement. Like, why are you giving advice to a husband not to speak to the press? And why are you clearing him before you've even found out what's happened to this young woman? It's just odd.
It's certainly strange. I mean, I know you probably covered more cases like this than I have, but I mean, typically in the beginning of the investigations like this, at least in my experience, police don't want to really shed too much light on whether or not they think that the partner is involved until maybe a little bit more time goes on. And specifically in a missing persons case, at least from my experience, it's, until they find someone, they don't really say much. It takes a lot of time. But hopefully they will say something now because this is really just kind of bringing up even more questions.
Well, and the fact that they've actually turned this over to SLED makes me think, well, it sure does sound suspicious. And maybe in their part, of the world, they turn these things over regardless. But if they'd found her in an obvious, position where it appeared suicide was the cause of death, would it have been turned over to SLED? I mean, would this have been a police matter instead? Or does this look as though something bad happened to this woman and now it's out of the hands of the police? And maybe it's because there's conflict of interest.
Right. I mean, I think the key thing here is going to be the medical examiner's report. And I don't know when we'll get that because, of course, we still haven't, gotten confirmation from the coroner's office that this is, in fact, her. But I think the medical examiner's office report is going to be really huge to figure out what exactly happened. Because to me, I'm a little bit confused about her being in the woods, what exactly would have caused her death in that situation, because I just don't know how you could pass away in that area. I mean, we were talking earlier too. I would be really interested to hear from police. You know, was there any kind of evidence like that they saw that showed any kind of indication of what happened? Maybe she was walking near where cars were driving by. I mean, that's right there where there's a lot of traffic. So I don't know. So there's still just so much unknown at this point.
Yeah, and listen, there'll be toxicology reports that are done as well, and who knows if this is a medical incident, if an overdose happened, and we were seeing some of the evidence of, it playing out as she was wandering to a place where she eventually might have died, or it just seems so incredibly coincidental if there's foul play involved. All of this business beforehand is very unusual to have met, with some mystery killer in an episode of Foul Play. That's why I'm just trying to put all these pieces together, and it just isn't kind of adding up.
Right. I think that is what is a little bit strange about everything is that if there was foul play, how did that exactly happen? Because we are seeing past instances where she was having some mental health issues, or it appears that she was from that video that we saw, on top of knowing that she was released from a mental health facility. So it does seem like that can't be a coincidence.
It's awfully weird,
Yeah. So it's something for sure.
So about her friends and family, what did they say about the past that she'd had with this husband, and that there had been some issues? Were there ever any reports of domestic violence, anything that the police were involved in, or is it too early to know that?
It's too early to know that at this point. All we know now is that they had been having relationship issues. For how long, I don't know. But it does look like in the past couple of months that they went to the beach together from her social media. And they have been together for over 13 years at this point, but they've only been married for 2 years. They got married back in 2024. So it's unclear exactly what the dynamic was there between them. I've seen rumors, online of some of the things that have happened, but of course that's at this point just rumors.
Yeah. And was there something to her staying somewhere else? Again, that might have just been chatter as well, but that she wasn't living currently with him, or at least was staying with someone else at the time she disappeared?
Right. I mean, that's something that I've heard as well, but I have not had that confirmed by any of the people that I've spoken with. So, I mean, that is something that I think that police will be looking at. And two, when she went missing, she was reported a day later that she was missing to police by the husband. And so my question would be, if they were living separately, how did he know to report her missing at that point? So that's a question too.
Whenever, and it's been a week, and whenever someone goes missing, there's always a cadence to a story, and there are slight deviations. But generally speaking, family members come out, they hit the microphone, they put out a plea to the media. But I didn't really see that in this case. I didn't see anything from her parents or siblings or aunts or uncles or even the husband. Any idea why there's just been such radio silence on their part?
Well, that's another big question as well. Now, I do know that she is adopted, that she's actually originally from Russia. And then she came over to South Carolina, was adopted by a couple here. I don't know at what age she was adopted or how long that she was here. But yeah, we haven't heard much from family or friends. And I think a lot of the friends, at least people I've spoken with, have been nervous about coming forward about specific details because they didn't necessarily want people online to be talking about it in ways. I mean, I know that there was a lot of frustration today from some of those people for some of the lives that were going on, some social media lives. People were going live outside of the search zone. And to some of her friends, it felt insensitive how some of those people were acting and what they were talking about, laughing on their lives while they're there doing and covering the search. And so there is frustration about people kind of just, making this more like of a content situation. And so there is definitely frustration there. But as far as her family and friends not speaking out publicly, I'm hoping they will start doing that soon.
Yeah, I sure hope so too, because, up until now, I think a lot of people were very concerned about the welfare of this poor young woman, especially after those distressing pictures showed up of her wandering and then hearing the report that she was so disoriented and taking a DoorDash, delivery. And I will say this about, podcasters and live streamers, et cetera. I think we really got a taste of that in the Nancy Guthrie investigation. To some people, this is just sport, and it is really sad. But for anybody who's watching this, there is a really important part that the media plays, and I think that the police chief even made a comment about that, because it does get the word out and it does bring in those tips where people say, "Wait a minute, I did see her. I thought it was something else."
It really is such a balance with reporting. But yeah, I mean, the police chief even said so himself that was super helpful, because otherwise they wouldn't have gotten these tips that led to that surveillance video that led them to where they found her today.
Yeah. Yes, we're just in that digital age where, they're just going to come out of the woodwork no matter what. And hopefully the good will outweigh the bad. Mills, great reporting on this. Let us know when you hear something more from your sources, and let's all pray, for a better outcome. I mean, this is just a very sad, sad story, but I certainly hope that this doesn't end up being some kind of a murder mystery. It's sad enough as it is.
I know it is definitely really sad, and I hope that we all get some answers, but specifically, I hope her family gets some answers real soon.
Amen to that. Thanks for being on. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Ashleigh.
My profuse thanks to Mills Hayes for that. NewsNation correspondent extraordinaire. I'll keep watching this. I have a feeling that this news is not going to be good. And if this, in fact, is a suspicious death, as opposed to, say, a suicide, well, then we have a whole other can of worms, right? Who is it? Who did this? Who did this to Elena? And why were the police clearing people close to her so quickly? That's a big question. So, as usual, you got questions, we look for answers. Keep tuning in. Make sure you subscribe. Love having you. Thanks so much for being here. And remember, truth isn't just serious. It's drop dead serious.